Hi, Emma.
Salut Sylvie. Oh,
José Luis, hello.
¿qué tal, Anita?
¿Qué tal? Qué blanquito ahí se te ve.
Ay, qué... Ay,
Ah.
¿qué tal las abejas, Anita? ¿Te las has quitado?
Ay, pues no. Es que se van a quedar en mi casa, me parece, de momento. Me ha traído un apicultor una colmena.
¡Ay, Monique!
Hi, Marlene.
Luego te lo cuento.
Vale.
Luego te mando un vídeo.
Nice to see you, Monique.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, and you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Wow.
It's just such a blessing. Just be at home and join. It's just amazing. I don't need to drive anymore. It's just I'm home.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hey.
Ay.
Hello, my loves. For those of you who are not familiar with the format here, what we do is we have all of the microphones muted. And if you would like to participate, either by asking a question or sharing something, then if you go to the participants tab, then at the bottom you should be able to find a hand icon. And if you click on the hand icon, that will notify me that you're interested in saying something, and I can unmute you. And alternately, if your English is a little difficult, you can use the text or the chat function to type your question out, and I will read it. So. But I assure you that as far as I'm concerned, questions and talking are not essential in any way. They're not necessary. But if they happen, that's equally fine with me.
Hello.
Yes, James. Hello.
Hello there. I'm beginning to really get the fact that there's kind of a commune presence, which is wonderful.
Isn't it though, James? It's spectacular.
Well, it is and it isn't for me because I like to gabble and philosophize. But at the same time, I and also have anticipation of something's going to happen. But I'm beginning to see the purpose of this. But I couldn't resist doing the raising the hands at some point. But
You can only be who you are, James.
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's interesting you should say that because you have a level of authority. Obviously, when I say authority, I mean authentic or whatever word you like to use. So I get I've always had this through my life, and it obviously comes from having quite a strict father and all this. Like being like I'm doing something wrong or going to be condemned, or you're going to tell me off at some point, and through this process, I've realised that's all my imagination.
No, that could happen.
Well, it could happen, but not from this position of condemnation. But it could do because you say anything's possible.
What I would say is anything is possible, of course, but what is most likely is that given my nature, I can be irritated. I can express irritation. But at no point is it possible for there to be any sense that you should not do what you do or you should not be as you are. My own preferences, my likes and dislikes will play out.
Yeah, I've noticed that through this whole process I've meditated intensely in my life, and I've obviously gone into a different form of more insight. I can't really, you know anyway what it is. But this is different because I've noticed that things, even in deep meditation, like what's the true nature of reality, or this is the most obvious things. Like I sit here and I have a level of I think a level of self-consciousness, like a level of I'm doing something wrong, like I'm kind of almost in many ways the authorship exists on the very opposite, doesn't it? The authorship exists on that something's not right. It needs to change something.
Well, it's deeper than that. It's not that it's not right. It's fundamentally wrong, that it should not be.
There's something, yeah. So I've noticed this with this contemplation on the authorship, that I want something different. So sometimes I actually speak, to be honest, that I want something different to be the case here, and so I'll sometimes.
And it could be.
Yeah,
It could be something different. Could be the case in the future, but what is happening now is this.
Yeah.
And who you are now is this. Who I am now is this.
Yeah, it's like earlier on Facebook, a friend of mine got a couple of posts and really awful, really, like posts and some success. I had terrible jealousy about the old. I mean, not terrible jealousy. But there's two sides to it. I have kind of a level of reverence and reverence and respect, and want the person to be happy. But then the other side, jealousy. And then I was condemning myself for that jealousy. So I was like going, particularly on my study of Krishnamurti and Buddhism and meditation, I should not have this jealousy. I'm a terrible person. And then I suddenly realized your stuff, your teaching, and I thought, why the heck am I having this thing that's on top of the jealousy that makes it worse? But then on top of that, I realized, but all this is happening and I can't do anything about it. And so there's kind of like, without the grace that you talk about, there's kind of like a catch-22 situation going on.
Yes.
Like
because you may be able to do something about it in the future. But right now, this is what is.
But we often don't like what I don't like the jealousy. I mean,
of course, it's poison. Jealousy is poison.
So what? I mean, the what is. I can't accept it because I don't like it. But you're coming from like a higher place. So you're coming from a place that everything's been accepted immediately. Am I right?
Acceptance, James, see if you could hear me on this. Acceptance is not approval.
Okay. Yeah, I see. Yes, so acceptance is not like ego kind of.
It's not approval.
Massage.
It doesn't mean you like it. Acceptance is that this is in the moment, and it includes your liking or not liking.
Yeah,
you're approving or disapproving.
I see what you're saying. So you're somehow saying it from an incredible universal position, which I personally sense, like I can sense it, but I personally can't be it because I'm still an author. So, but I sense it. I sense this kind of.
Yes.
Particularly sitting here, I sense it a lot.
I'm sure you do.
Funny, isn't it? I don't know why I've ended up sitting here doing this review. It's funny, isn't it?
You never know what's going to happen, James.
Yeah.
Life's funny that way.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for that. I won't gabble on too much.
You're very welcome, James. Always.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this, by the way. Thank you.
Certainly. My pleasure. So Beverly asked, you mentioned irritation earlier. What do you do with that without it becoming an ego conversation, conflict, or disagreement? Sometimes the irritation does become a conflict or a disagreement. Now, the ego conversation is another matter. What I call involvement by the false sense of authorship. That when the sense of authorship becomes involved in irritation, what gets set up is a whole loop of the other person should not have done what they did. They should have known better. They were doing it deliberately to hurt me. They could have done it otherwise. All of that gets starts to play out, and that is what I call suffering. So the irritation is painful. I mean, to be irritated doesn't feel good. We'd all rather not be irritated, but irritation is something that happens. With some of us, because of our personalities, it happens more than with other people who are more passive by nature and more generally go with the flow by nature. Some of us just are cranky. Some of us just get irritated easily and have stronger likes and dislikes. But what converts that pain of being into suffering is what this teaching is concerned with. We're looking at that, saying, how is it that that process takes place? That the pain of the moment becomes this suffering that overwhelms everything. So while there are lots of, I suppose, techniques offered to deal with irritation or deal with pain of all kinds, pain management, whether one will be successful, a particular one will be successful for you or not, we can't say. But the teaching is not, has no position on it, other than to say that pleasure and pain are parts of life. They do happen. It is not possible that in the overall to escape pain in life. And to recognize that may go a long way to bringing more comfort in being alive. Hello, Ossie.
Hello, Wayne. Good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Excellent.
So I wanted to share something.
Yes?
You know, I come from a Jewish background and culture and education system, which is in Israel. So large part of it is about the World War II and the Holocaust.
Yes.
So, and in the past, I also used to be history teacher. So I was, this area, and also my ancestor, they're like Polish and Russian Jews. So they are deeply affected by, and when a few years ago, when I starting reading Ramesh and listening to him, I used to dramatize the concept of non-doership. He used to say that Hitler and Mother Teresa are both instrument of totality, something like this.
Yes.
And yes, and I love it because this is really like dramatizing, and it's like taking two poles. So you have like guilt and you have pride, and and then okay, these are two basically part of totality manifesting.
Yes.
So this was really nice. And then what really got me, when in one of his book, I don't remember which one, but there's a conversation with a German guy that is basically saying, he's telling Ramesh, listen, I was a Nazi soldier and I was fighting on the German side. And, I did terrible stuff. One day we came to a village. He wasn't working in the concentration camp, but he was fighting and killing people. And he said one time we went to a village, and out of a rage or something, they killed everyone there, like children, women and children, terrible, and he said, it was, I think when he talked, he said it was like 30, 40 years ago. And I feel so guilty. This is terrible. This is like, anyway, look at it. So and then, but he said that, but I was sitting here and I was coming here back and back. And this is, and I felt all the guilt going out of them. I really understand, like you told me, that I was not doing it. It was part of the doing of the totality. And the way he told, and he said he cried, and this is very emotional, because this guy is actually was doing like terrible stuff, and he really felt that all his guilt went away.
Yes.
So this is really got me. This was like a really strong conversation. And then the other day I saw this movie, which I think is, this is the first time I'm seeing like a really smart movie with an open perspective about World War II. It's a new movie called Jojo Rabbit.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Did you see it?
I did. Yes.
So it's an amazing movie because it's very radical. And, with Hitler as an imaginary friend, it's very nice, but you really see the complexity of the people there. It's amazing that this guy that created this movie, and this is also kind of a Hollywood movie. It's not like this is a big budget movie. So I was really touched by this movie, and what I wanted to share is, did you see just before the credits, there was a beautiful quote from Rilke, the great poet, the great German poet, which is all over the movie. They're talking about him and poetry, and it's beautiful. So I wanted to read it because it's like for our times, this is like beautiful quote, like many of us. So yes, so this is just before the credits. When the movie ends, you have like black screen and you have this beautiful quote. It's like half Hollywood movie. So it's amazing. So it's from a song called "Go to the Limits of Your Longing," and it's a very short quote, and it says, "Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final." It's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. Like, it is. So I wanted to share it because this time when you see this sometimes opening in some people who create like this movie, or some opening like there are in your conversation or in Ramesh's conversation, really some gems that you really see it from, and this comes from my perspective, like from my culture. So it's really close to heart. So you have the universal, and then you have the personal, and it's like when it hits together. So you see, it's truly beautiful. So I just felt like sharing it.
Thank you, Us. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I had a similar experience in Moscow many years ago, where there was a man who came, and he was actually he wasn't even coming for the talks per se. He was the bodyguard for someone who was coming to the talks, and both he and the guy he was bodyguarding were both a bit drunk. And they were very much in the talks. And at the end of the talk, this man, and he was huge. He was at least as tall as I am, and I'm 2 meters tall. And he was considerably more muscular and fatter than me. So this was a big man. And afterwards, he came and he hugged me, and he broke down in tears, and he was sobbing uncontrollably. And the translator translated for me that what he was saying was that he had been in Afghanistan, and he had done horrible things in the war in Afghanistan. And as you were in the same situation as happened with this fellow, with Ramesh, he'd been carrying this incredible load of guilt for years and years. And in that moment, in that talk, there was a recognition, there was a profound lifting of that weight that happened. And he was truly liberated in a sense. And these are things that do happen. Now these are very dramatic examples, but this is what happens to all for whom this false sense of authorship becomes exposed. As the understanding grows and deepens, the weight of the guilt for past actions and the fear of what is to come diminish. And it does it on its own. It isn't a process that anybody is engaged in. It is truly grace.
Oh, hello.
Barbara and Roman.
Thank you. First of all, it's really a pleasure to be here. This is the second time we're joining.
Ah, well, you're most welcome.
And I have a question. I tried to formulate it in my mind, and it's not so easy, so I'll just try to formulate it. What I noticed is, looking back the last years, is that I learned to actually give a little bit more importance to the person that I am, you know, to get to know the likes and dislikes and the limits and kind of self-care. And at the same time, it's being transcended, and I'm stepping off this this identification with the seeming limited entity. So it seems to be a contradiction, but maybe it's not, and that's what I would like to clarify.
I see. Yes. In this teaching, that process is very much encouraged. We start with this quality of being, because we all have it. Everybody has it. You have to have it. It's functional. It's practical. It's what enables you to know who you are, who the other is, where it is your house, it's your car, it's your pet, not somebody else's. All of this kind of identification as an entity is part of the functioning of existence. So we start with that. We say that's there, and then encourage the kind of investigation that you're talking about. What's the properties of this thing that I am? What are its qualities and characteristics? How is it that I have I have this level of intelligence? I'm not mentally handicapped. How is it that I have this physical capacity, that I'm not physically handicapped? How is it that I have this emotional capacity, I'm not emotionally handicapped? How is it that I have all of these gifts, and how is it that I have the limitations that I have? So as you recognize and you have a full sense of yourself as an entity, you can then, perhaps with grace, open to the possibility and open to the question of how is it that these things have occurred? How is it that I am as I am? What is responsible for that? Because clearly, if it was up to us, we wouldn't have any limitations. We would be perfect, Pardon me?
I would sign up for that.
Yeah. Yes, of course, because our limitations bring us pain. So we would cut out every aspect of ourselves that caused us pain. Our inability to do that should be a pointer or an indicator of something bigger than us being at play. And that is what the teaching is pointing at, that it isn't, we don't have to throw ourselves out in order to recognize this, expanded beingness. But rather, we begin to, with grace, recognize that what we are is an aspect of that. So it is a reduction in the limitation of ourselves as being independent entities. See, that's the source of the suffering, the claim of being independent, not of being an entity.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so it's that which is the more subtle teaching, you see.
Yeah, thank you. Makes a lot of sense.
You're very welcome, Barbara. Hello, Laurent.
Hello, Wayne. I think there seemed to be a lack of understanding for me in the field of getting irritated with other people, and
What part of that don't you understand?
okay, that's very simple. The very part that being irritated is part of my nature, and I can sometimes see the secondary involvement that tells me, oh, you shouldn't get yourself irritated, and that the other part of the other one, the others shouldn't be different than what they are. When I see that, when the thought shows up, there is an intellectual understanding. Okay, I understand they shouldn't be different, but then I feel my own experience is taken away. My own experience of being irritated is taken away. So this is it's coming back to divide me in a way. You know, it's coming back again as a secondary involvement. I mean, that's what this is what I have observed lately. Or sometimes maybe I'm not accurate. Maybe I'm wrong, but there seems to be a lack of clarity for me in that field. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you say, when it is an intellectual understanding, then that intellectual understanding may come in and briefly cut off the involvement, cut off the should,
Mm-hmm.
but it quickly flips back or flops back.
Yeah.
And then you're left with that feeling that you were describing of having had some part of yourself cut off, and which is actually the return of the false sense of authorship, some involvement. Because again, you are isolated, you are disconnected, or feeling that way.
How is it a return of the false sense of authorship? This is maybe what I don't get.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a way of talking.
Okay. Isn't the removal that the others should be different is exactly the other side of the coin? I should be different, and the both fade away. There's no room for being irritated anymore, in a way, no?
Oh no, there's definitely room for being irritated. Being irritated is a quality of the personality, and you need look no further than Nisargadatta Maharaj and Ramesh's guru. And if you go on YouTube, you can find some videos of him, and he's irritated a lot. He was an irritable personality. It was just simply his nature. And so we have a vision of sages as being these placid, non-reactive kinds of beneficent lumps, you know, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. So when he was shouting to people, sometimes it wasn't coming from the willingness that they
should be different. That is absolutely correct. It comes from, this is irritating. Full stop. I mean, the irritation is always about you. It's never about them.
Yeah. So it's about with grace exposing the full sense of authorship when it occurs or not. But I mean, could be a way to deepen the understanding in a way.
Well, the understanding can deepen, yes, which is the diminishing of the false sense of authorship's involvement. But when you understand that the false sense of authorship is not responsible for any of these primary responses,
yeah,
of which irritation is one.
Yeah.
Likes and dislikes are primary responses of the organism. We have built into us, in the moment, a whole system of likes and dislikes, things we prefer and don't prefer to be. But it is when those preferences and those likes and dislikes become shoulds that the pain becomes suffering.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Laura.
Thanks.
Hello, Zhao.
Hello, Wayne. I wrote down so I don't forget.
Okay.
It was about the doing things more freely without have overthink about things. Usually, I am someone that hours before doing something, I always taking care and sometimes being too cautious about, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? And sometimes it's good because it's a little, it's part of my nature to be careful, to like to program things in advance, this kind of thing.
This is very good for a software engineer.
Sure. It's great. And it's the way my works too.
Yeah.
But sometimes I overthink and it's kind of becomes like a heavy load and you can't move also. So it's not good. And like these past days, we are having this Sangha happening. So it's been a strong energy happening. It's like being in a retreat. So it's been very good. And I felt in the last couple of days more freely in the way I'm reacting and thinking, and also more relaxed if I have to do something. So it's been very good. Something that has happened that was kind of a shift too. It was related to the concepts, like you spoke many times about the concepts being concepts, and use this week the pointer related to the concepts that treat them as poetry or seeing them as poetry. It was very good because then you see like something that's going to help to make you live better and more relaxed, and to you can attack more directly the false sense of authorship because you're not so attached to the pointer. So it was something that was very precious to me also this week. So it's a way to share the things that I'm feeling, and also to be very thankful for everything. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So Catherine asks, when there is the understanding that there is no author, I do not feel that there is something greater, but rather that there is nothing real, only energy which moves according to laws of cause and effect. Am I wrong in this? It's not a matter of being right or wrong. It's not the way I point to things. The pointer that I use is that this understanding that there is no author is not something that one has. And so it is not something greater, but rather it is something less. So that involvement by the false sense of authorship simply doesn't happen any longer. And so what is manifest continues to be manifest, but it no longer appears to be independent. So everything that is manifest is that primal energy. And its movement, the movement of the primal energy, is this manifest world. So nothing is taken away from what is. The world is not negated. It is not a nihilistic teaching at all, but rather it is what is understood to be part of this vast wholeness, this vast unity. Yes, Pasha.
Hello, Wayne.
Hello.
Hello. I was used the ocean and the wave metaphor quite a bit, and I think is it the same with like I think a lot of other teachers use the dream metaphor. Like within the dreaming, there's only one thing happening, but it's manifesting in different forms. But it's only just dreaming. Would you say that's kind of equivalent?
I don't have any particular comment about that.
Okay.
If you want to draw a parallel, feel free.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that's all I was thinking about. Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Sure. The essence of the ocean and the wave metaphor is simply to point to the fact that there is no independent objects, so that everything, all the waves, are aspects of the whole. So it is the sense that things, including us, are independent of one another, is the illusion or the source of the suffering. And the understanding or the recognition that we talk about is the recognition that this quality of independence simply is false. Yes, James.
Yeah, that the independence thing, I can clearly see that. Even this conversation, intellectually see that. in the sense that even this conversation, like if you did not just said that, then I won't be saying this now. So there's you can even see it. So these people who argue that everyone is independent, like the pure free will thing, you can dice into, if you want to do an intellectual kind of thing, which obviously you wouldn't want to do, but I probably would. You can dissect that argument really quick anyway, can't you? Because you're pointing out something that's not true.
You either see it or you don't, James. And the intellect is infinitely capable of coming up with clever arguments. And the free will versus determination argument has been going on for thousands of years by people whose intellectual capacities far exceed ours, James.
Maybe.
And it still hasn't been resolved.
Yeah, yeah. But there is the argument that what's the free will argument? Basically, that if you become
it is, all we're concerned with is the fact that the question remains intellectually open, that there has been no firm conclusion on either side, and it is continued to be debated endlessly by really, really sharp intellects.
well, the free will situation, which is, does that have any validity anywhere? So does that,
for people who are arguing that there is free will, it has tremendous validity for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I was talking to them, they're saying that awakening, when you awaken, you become the absolute author. But that's not accurate, is it?
We already are that. It's not, we don't become it, James.
Yeah.
We're not becoming anything. We already are what we are. What is already what is. All that drops is the false sense of being something other.
Yeah. And then the mind then goes into why, doesn't it? Why?
Yes, that's the provenance of the mind, but we're not concerned with whys.
It's just happening.
Well, we're just pointing to what is. The why, the inquiry into why things is part of what is, but what we're focused on is the what is.
You got the lid off. Okay. But anyway, I've got to be a father now. So
okay, enjoy. For those of you with your cameras on, it is truly a pleasure to see you all. And for those of you who have your cameras off, it's a pleasure to feel your presence. I'm going to change the muting function so that you can unmute yourselves here in a moment. And hope to see you again soon.
Hi, Laura. I sent you an email.
Me?
Yeah, I sent you an email.
Thank
Charles.
you, everyone. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Hello, Marie. Au revoir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Toujours habite.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody.
It's a pleasure to see you all.
Ciao. Ciao, Phil. You look like a Buddha.
Thank you very much. Beautiful Sangha.
What's your name? I can't read Cyrillic.
Jima, bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Hola.
Bye-bye.
Bye. How are you?
Bye, 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 bye.
Hi, Fatima. Hello, Ma.
Hola.
Oh, hello.
Great to be with you.
Great. To be with you too. So,
Gracias. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Adiós, Ana. Hola, Ana, no sé. Lohan, Marie.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Anna. Bye, Gemma. Bye,
Bye.
Lara.
bye. Oh,
Adiós.
Sean.
See you.
What is happening?
Thank you, Sergey. Bye, Marlene. Charles, are you there? Are you still there? No.
Bye.
Bye. Oksana.
To see you.
Yes, so nice to see you all. Mm.